Welcome to First Things First. I'm Ebony K. Williams in for Miss Jenna Wolfe. That is Hall of Famer Cris Carter. Mr. Nick Wright, good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good to see you, C.
Can I get some down?
Good to see you, Miss
Yeah, don't leave me out.
No, we got you. We got you.
Oh, my chair.
Nick was late. I thought it was going to be me and Ebony.
He tried to lock the door on you,
Man,
actually.
we was getting ready to do some stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right.
That would have been breaking news.
That is
Oh,
accurate.
man, don't know if people are ready for that. But we're going to start the show off today, leading with a sentence that we have not said since the 2016 football season. Andrew Luck will play in an NFL game today. The Colts kick off their preseason in Seattle with number 12 under center. Now, Luck recently said that he was worried he'd never have fun playing football again. But he'll play the first quarter for Indy. CC, what should the Colts expect or hope to see from Luck tonight?
Well, we want to see a lot different than what we've seen of late. We like to see the Andrew Luck that we saw at the beginning of his career, Ebony, compared to what we saw the last 2 years. We know he didn't play at all last season, but in 14 to 16, it's up to Frank Wright to build changed identity, him and the new general manager that they have, to change the identity of this organization. And football is a physical sport. Now, Indianapolis, for a long, long time, now I'm not talking since Luck got there, for a long time, they've gotten away with playing finesse football. It won them one Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. But if they could go back over the Peyton Manning era again, you would know one thing they would change would be the overall physicality of the teams that they put on the field. From years 2014 to 2016, Andrew Luck on straight drop back passes was pressured more than anyone in the National Football League. So that inability to protect one of the great quarterbacks that we had in the league, and then the lack of a running game. If you think of Andrew Luck, and if you think of the lack of productivity that he's gotten in all the games that he's been in, I mean, it's almost a crime to not be able to support him. So all the games that he started, he's only had 3 100-yard rusher in all those games.
In his career. Which is insane. It's 70 games, 3 100-yard rushers. That's organizational malpractice to a degree. And when you go back in a longer lens and look at the Peyton Manning era, I think it is absolutely fair to say getting to 2 Super Bowls and winning 1 with Peyton Manning there for as long as he was underachieving as a franchise.
Yeah, and it's just not how many times they got there. It was how many times were they the best team in football?
And got one and done.
Yeah. How many times did they have home field advantage?
Right. How many times were the playoffs going through what was then the RCA Dome, then Lucas Oil Stadium? How many times were they the 1 or the 2 seed and knocked out in the first round? How many times were the Colts a favorite in a playoff game and they lost? Now, Peyton owned all of that blame, essentially. But now that we can look at it, and we can look at a team that I don't think it's fair to say they've underachieved with Luck because of the injuries the last few years, but a team that the last time the Colts had a dominant defense was 1 year in the Peyton Manning era. They had some good dominant players. Freeney's a Hall of Fame caliber player. Robert Mathis was excellent. Bob Sanders won defensive.
He had a period there where he was outstanding.
But since they lost Edge, it feels like they haven't had the consistent running game. This year, our friends at Pro Football Focus ranked their rushing attack dead last. So, like going into the season, so that is a trend that is going to potentially continue. But Luck can't control that. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for something Andrew Luck absolutely can control, which is, and this isn't meant to sound condescending, but has he learned how to play pro football? We know he can make all the pro throws, but has he learned, due to his injuries, due to being out of the lineup, due to questioning if he'd like playing football anymore, have fun playing football, that, you know what? Sometimes I've got to live for the next down. Sometimes the best play is an incompletion. Sometimes I need to even Peyton Manning style sack myself instead of trying to brush off the hit. Like, has he learned from what has personally an incredibly trying last 3 years of playing, not playing, playing, not playing?
That's a great observation because he's got it in his DNA. His dad was a quarterback. He grew up around the league. Now, he is a throwback. He is a big, husky, thick, very, very good athlete. This might surprise a lot of people, but if you look at his combine numbers, size, height, weight, explosive ability in the short shuttle, 40-yard dash. Him and Cam Newton, they almost look identical.
The only thing Cam had him on considerably was the 40. But
Yes.
all the other stuff and the height, weight, strength, he's right there.
So you're right. At some point, that overall athleticism has to turn into being a pure quarterback, and he can't afford to take blow after blow after blow. So when you're watching the game tonight, if he's getting rid of the football, and even if they're punting, they're winning, because Andrew Luck's ability to run on and off that sideline is going to determine where this team goes and where this franchise is going to go.
Totally. Okay, so assuming he stays healthy, fellas, how good can Indy be with Andrew Luck?
Well, this is the thing. They're limited. They're limited how good they can be because the lack of overall explosive personnel. Now, Andrew Luck's going to give you a chance. They say when you have a franchise quarterback, you got a chance that he can win 6 or 7 games. So can he get them to 8-8? Because you got to look. You can't look at Indy absent and look at what's going on around them. Tennessee Titans, we would probably say, has the least amount of talent of the next 3 teams I'm going to talk about, and they were in the playoffs last year. They have Vrabel there as their new coach, so they're trying to turn that franchise around. Jacksonville, to me, is stacked.
Yeah.
All right? They got a good young nucleus of players. Blake Bortles, does he take that next step this year? They don't have a lot of explosive players on their offense. And the Texans are the team that you're like, okay, what can they be? Because they could be 11-5 team, or they could easily be a.
They were 4-12 last year, 5-11.
They can be 6-10.
I mentioned the Colts had the 32nd ranked running game according to Pro Football Focus. The Texans were 31st. They also don't have an offensive line, but aside from that, you love the team. Like their wide receivers, their defense. But I want to talk about the fair expectations for the Colts to answer your question, because I think some people would say, I mean, the year before you got there, they were 2-14. The next year, they went 11-5. I don't think that is the perfect comparison. I think people underrate how much talent was still on the Colts team when Luck took over, because that was a team that had won double-digit games for a decade straight. They were now. For them to function at all, they had to have high-level quarterback play. They didn't have it the 1 year Peyton was out, and it all fell apart. But that team still had Reggie Wayne. That team still had Robert Mathis. That team still had at least a left tackle that you had some type of faith in. This is one of the least talented Colts teams that Luck has been a part of. So I think that they go into this year as one of, even with Luck, in the bottom quarter of the AFC and potentially the worst team in their division. But for me, the Colts season is about Luck playing 16 games, and does he look like the Andrew Luck we remembered? What I remember hearing, and I can't break this stuff down, but I know Cris can. What I remember hearing about Andrew Luck coming out of college wasn't just the best prospect since Elway stuff. It was perfect throwing motion.
Yes.
Perfect, and you can demonstrate that, but perfect tight throwing motion. I would imagine if you deal with a shoulder injury, you're dealing with strength.
Yes.
Maybe that changes your throwing motion. That's what I would be looking for.
Right. You're looking for something good. And that is, what is the loop that a quarterback takes once he releases the ball? Does he go down with the ball with a big windup, or does he have the short loop that we've seen before where he comes straight over the top? Watching the game tonight, those things will be easy to see. Now, he started off with a smaller football he started throwing. He started throwing a weighted football, but nothing is like being in the game, being rushed, and throwing that NFL football. So those are things that you have to look for in the game with the Colts tonight. But the NFL is better when certain teams are winning, and guys like Andrew Luck and J.J. Watt, they're healthy and they're playing for their ball club.
See, you said something there. You said you'll be able to see it, and you did it real quickly. I'm not certain people are going to be able to see it. Can you do that a little slower? Like, because you said when you release the football, you don't actually mean when you release the football. You mean when your offhand comes off the ball, what your throwing motion does.
When a quarterback identifies where he's going to go with his target, all right? He's going to be holding the ball with 2 hands in his pocket, in the pocket. Once he sees them, he will take his non-throwing hand off, which typically is his left hand, and then the motion starts of how quick can he get. Peyton Manning, straight from here off the top, very, very quick. One of the quickest we've seen. Luck has a very good throwing motion, and it was nice and tight and over the top. But when your shoulder has been through what it's been through, does he take more time on his throw to bring it up to recruit more muscles for his overall arm strength.
More what like Jameis looks like the big.
Yes.
I mean, it won't be that bad. Jameis has a huge looping motion, but so to see if it looks as tight as it used to.
Yeah, or almost like you guys, Cam. Cam is somewhere in between Luck and Jameis.
wow.
Y'all know what I'm
Early
talking
in the
about.
Cam
show,
references,
getting in
10
a little
minutes.
Cam dig. Here we go. Now, coming up, are the Warriors, well, they are, say they're done listening to the critics. We'll talk about it next on First Things First. On to the NBA. A lot of criticism has come to the Warriors this offseason when they signed Boogie Cousins following yet another title. But former Finals MVP Andre Iguodala thinks that the critics are looking at it all wrong. Now, he told Sports Illustrated, quote, "For us, we understand that we have a tight window to build a certain type of culture that will attract athletes like DeMarcus Cousins. And what we're doing is playing basketball the right way. We're attracting a lot of people because they like the way we do things organically. We respect the game." Is that a chuckle? Nick, okay, wow, you couldn't even hold it in. Is Iggy right in his defense of the Warriors?
Man, the Warriors are funny, man. This is a funny collection of cats. Like, we're doing it organically.
Organically.
Well, I mean, listen, organic can mean a bunch of different things. Like in the scientific community, it means carbon-based. You go to Whole Foods, it just means like no antibiotics
Or
with the
like
food.
$100.
Typically, organically would mean like homegrown, I guess, is what it means in sports. The Warriors are a lot of things. Organically built. It's not one of them. I mean, Andre Iguodala, who's doing the talking, he, of course, signed, leaving a 57-win Nuggets team, but that was before the Warriors were the Warriors. I just want people, the Warriors are now they deserve credit for so many things. But the idea that we have recreated history on how this happened, can we just remind everyone, how do they have Steph Curry on $11 million a year? How do they have a superstar future MVP on $11 million a year? Because the guy had bad ankles. They got him to a discount, which helped them set everything in place. Then how else did everything happen? Well, a new TV deal, which allows for a cap spike, and the NBA doesn't. The NBA PA says we're not going to do smoothing. There's going to be 1 year of a cap spike. What happens the year leading into the cap spike? Well, their biggest competition, OKC, is up 3-1 on them. Klay Thompson has one of the greatest games in NBA history, and the Thunder end up blowing a 3-1 lead. The Warriors then end up blowing a 3-1 lead of their own. Both of those things had to happen to go along with a year-long tampering with Kevin Durant via their biggest competition, to all culminate in Draymond Green crying in the parking lot after the NBA Finals, begging KD to come join them. All of those things happened and had to happen. Couldn't have happened without Steph's contract. Couldn't have happened without the TV deal. Without KD going there, Draymond does not go there. The idea that Draymond went there because it's culturally the best thing. He went there because no other team in the league had more than 2 All-Stars. They had 4, and he could become the 5th. I mean, listen, they did everything within the rules. Theoretically, they are the champions. But the idea that, oh, no, it's about our ethos. It's about our striving for greatness that makes us attractive. Nah, man. It's none of the above. It's about the game being easier in Golden State than anywhere else. And quit kidding yourself otherwise.
Yeah. Now, you told that story in an organic fashion, considering organic can be anything. One slight correction. I know now that because Boogie came from the Pelicans to the Warriors, he's the villain, but he's not Draymond, though. Draymond was already there. You said Draymond coming over.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you.
No, but your story was, it's beautiful.
Otherwise, the
Beautiful
story
story.
Yeah. And very, very accurate.
Yeah.
Absent of Kevin Durant, all right, the Warriors, and this is where Iggy was right.
Okay.
They do play a brand of basketball that is cutting edge, and it has been grown organically. We never thought that we could have a team that could shoot that many threes, be led by the 3 ball, but they don't do it just with the 3. They do it with ball movement. Now, they have 2 of the greatest shooters ever, so that makes that system. It's like if you had 2 great players, whatever system, like the triangle with Phil Jackson, it's going to be successful. Right. Jordan, Shaq, and Kobe, when those things happen, the triangle worked. When you didn't have great players, the triangle didn't look as good. I like watching the Warriors play. Sure. They didn't need Kevin Durant, so now the conversation becomes, how good is the system, or is it just a collection of players? So it's hard to enjoy watching the Warriors play since they've added Kevin Durant, but the build up to Kevin Durant, man, it was beautiful. Watching them win 73 games, it was amazing. But it wasn't as if they were unbeatable then.
Right.
Now when you add Kevin Durant, it's really, really hard to say, well, what is it, the system? Or is it the totality of the talent that they can throw at?
And yesterday was the anniversary of the '92 Dream Team beating Croatia to win the gold medal. What system was that team running? Oh, wait, it didn't matter because they was thumping everybody on the head. Gold medal game, they won by 32 points. It was the closest game in their Olympic run. They did have a great system. Now they can play any system they want. They did have an organically grown team, which, by the way, was not hated. It was becoming the most popular team in the league. Everyone seems to understand, by the way, Kevin Durant seems to understand that everything changed when he went there. And the denialism otherwise, it's just ahistorical. Like, this team was not, and one last point on them playing the right way. There is forget the winning. There is a brand of the Warriors antagonistic, front-running, whining to the refs, they led the entire league in ejections last year by a mile. That rubs people the wrong way. The way game one of the finals, if we remember, of course we remember the JR, LeBron's great game. But how about Draymond? After playing terribly, Draymond doing the pom-pom thing to Kendrick Perkins, Steph laughing and giggling when with the final minute of overtime in LeBron's face. Like, that rubs people the wrong way. That's not about playing basketball
we were talking about
way.
playing the right way. I'm sorry, because I should have said the way they move the basketball. They lead the NBA in touches and passes.
And assists every year.
I mean, so it is amazing to be able to see that, especially with talented players sharing the wealth and sharing on the offensive end of the court. And they're one of the top 3 defensive teams. So how they do basketball that wise, I didn't explain that part. That part
technique,
right there.
You know about technique.
Yes.
But let's get to it, fellas. The question I want to ask you both, and I want you to just give me a yes or no on it and then explain. They can do it. You said it, Nick. They've done it technically the right way, by the book. What they've done has been allowable by NBA rules. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. So is what the Warriors are doing, and KD and all these guys, is it ruining NBA basketball?
I won't say ruining, but it's not good. So I'm not giving you a yes or no, but I don't think it's good for it. I don't think it's good that one team has 5 All-Stars, no other team has more than 2. There's no team with 3 All-Stars, no team with 4 All-Stars. There's one team with 5. The guy talking, Andre Iguodala, Finals MVP, not even included amongst that group. Like, they've got 5 starting All-Stars and a Finals MVP coming off the bench. Like, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good going into the league, going into a season when the intrigue is about next offseason. I happen to not believe that's good, and so I don't think it's ruining. Ruining's too strong of a word, but no, I don't like it. I certainly don't like it even more.
No, the ruin part is not true, because the NBA right now is as popular as it's ever been. From a branding standpoint, from a viewership standpoint, from clicks daily, Instagram, Twitter. If you look at all those things, if you look at our show, all right? In the month where we didn't have anything but NBA in the offseason, all right, we did well. So it's doing well for the brand. It's growing basketball. It's not what we prefer to see, but one thing that I've said, and about LeBron, I said this to Nick recently, was what the Warriors have done, it brought out the best in LeBron James.
Okay.
And he's the best player in the world. So you can say it hurt basketball overall is who can win a championship. Yes, and it's only going to last for a certain period of time.
And maybe maybe that's part of it, and I just need to readjust my eye, because in the last 2 NBA Finals, LeBron's averaged 34, 10, and 10. 34, 10, and 10, the last 2 finals, and he's 1-8. And in NBA history, that's never been able to be the case. It's always been, if you have the best player in the world at the peak of his powers, if you're not the champion, it's going 7 games. It's going, and so it's just so different from what I'm used to seeing as far as
and it's so different than the NFL.
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely. Well, the NBA, here's the thing. It had been so different than the NFL because one guy could do everything.
Yes.
Right? And now it seems like now there's almost the LeBron, Aaron Rodgers situation where it's like one guy can only do so much. That's not how the league used to be. Like each league had its own charm. That's not how the NBA had been.
Absolutely. Well, coming up, is Baker Mayfield about to prove the Browns right tonight? We're going to see. We'll talk about it next on First Things First. In Oakland, where Khalil Mack sagas may have reached the breaking point. Now, Mack is due less than $14 million this season, but he says he wants Von Miller money. However, the Raiders might not have enough cash to pay the two-time All-Pro, and he could be forced to deal him away. So, Chris, what do you make of this? How do you see it playing out?
Why you draft good players? You draft them so they develop, and one day they grow up to be like Khalil Mack. Like, how are you ever going to get close to being Super Bowl contenders if you let your, not forget good players, great players go? It's hard to find a pass rusher. It's hard to develop. Khalil Mack is one of those. He needs to be paid.
I agree with all this. The Raiders, though, this is a unique situation for a couple reasons. From what I've understood, part of the debate is about he wants a lot of the guaranteed money deferred for 2 years. Why? That's when they move to Nevada. Nevada's got 0% state tax. California's got the highest state tax. Also, the Raiders are the only team in the NFL. When they say we might not have the cash, they might really be meaning we ain't got it, man. We can put something on it.
Now you make a point,
but we ain't got it. Like we ain't.
Yeah, their owners don't have the strong cash flow. But I did read in the paper come October, the revenue sharing part of the TV agreement, they do get a check, Ebony, for $220 million.
So they're gonna have a little something.
And that's more, by the way.
Put on it.
Put on it.
That's more than the entire salary cap. And that's before you sell a hot dog or a beer or a park.
Put something on it. Now, from the AFC West to the NFC West. Cardinals rookie QB Josh Rosen is going to see his first preseason action Saturday. The team hasn't announced how they're going to divvy up the playing time, but we'll be sure that we'll see some of Rosen when the Chargers come to town. Rosen recently said that he's gotten better each day. Nick, why do you think all the noise surrounding Josh Rosen has really kind of quieted down?
Because where he was drafted. I think going to Arizona, going there, and a market that we don't cover a ton. It's on the West Coast. It's not the Rams. It's not the Seahawks. Not the Niners. I think it's been the perfect spot for him, at least as far as we haven't talked to any Josh Rosen. And the big concern with him coming out of college was not so. You were worried about him being slight of frame, but for a lot of people it was, okay, like, is this guy going to be a distraction? Is he going to be talking to his teammates about politics?
Those are people who've never been in the NFL locker room, though.
Sure, but a lot of those people are in the media, and we have not had a reason to talk about Josh Rosen because of things he has said. Like, I think it's good that the noise has died down.
Yeah. Once you get into pro football, all those little things, that they're not a big concern. Arizona is a good team for them. They're going to be a defensive dominant team. David Johnson coming back from being injured. He will play this season. Not just because Sam Bradford is going to be hurt, because his draft position warrants him playing.
Fair enough. Teddy Bridgewater, he's only played 9 snaps over the last 2 seasons, and he might not get one in New York. The Jets are reportedly open to trading Bridgewater, but only at the right price. So, CC, is this a good idea for the Jets to move on from Teddy?
It's amazing, the Jets. We haven't played one game, and Teddy has looked that good that he only had a couple people that wanted to sign him. Teams wanted to sign him. And the Jets felt so good about signing him, they didn't give him hardly any guaranteed money.
$500,000.
And gave Josh McCown a whole bunch of guaranteed money. So just slow down on that a little bit. He needs to play this preseason. It's very, very important before you can be talking about what
the right price. The right price for a guy that literally 4 months ago anybody could have had, you would assume, for $1 million in guaranteed dollars, because they got him for $500,000 guaranteed dollars. I hope he plays this preseason. I hope he plays well, and I hope he does get traded to a team where he might play more this year, because I think it's going to go McCown to Darnold in New York, with Teddy being the odd man out. And he's such a good person and such a good story, and he was on his way to becoming, I believe, a really good quarterback before the catastrophic knee injury.
And one thing the Jets should look at if they're going to trade is not a draft pick, but maybe another wide receiver.
Okay. Right. Finally, huge news out of the NCAA yesterday. After that FBI investigation into compensation for college players, seems like the NCAA has taken a big step. They will now allow elite high school basketball recruits and college players to be represented by agents that have been certified by the NCAA. Nick, do you think this is a step in the right direction?
It may be an inch forward. I think that the headline, oh, guys can get agents, is more grabbing than the actual details. They can get agents, but if they decide to go back to school, they got to get rid of the agent. And while they have the agent, he can't give them any money. He can just pay for some meals and some flights. It also, the way they did it in a very NCAA style, ham-handedly, they said, who gets to get agents coming out of high school? The USA Basketball's determined that. USA Basketball said, we are? How? You didn't ask us. You didn't tell us. They did this assuming that the one-and-done rule was going away, which it probably is, but the NBA has not officially done that. The one part of this that I found most noteworthy, though, was that if you are invited to the NBA Combine, declare for the draft, and go undrafted, they are now going to let you go back to school. Now, that would have only affected 4 guys last year, but I think that is a great change. I think it would be a potentially more impactful change. This is what I want to ask you, Chris, for college football guys, because there's a hell of a lot more than 4 guys every year in football that leave early as juniors and go undrafted. Do you think this would be a good change on the football side of things?
It wouldn't be good from a football standpoint because you have to deal with either the quarters or semesters. And typically after the bowl game, guys who are going to enter the draft, they drop out of school because they can't take a full workload. They go to these remote locations, Arizona, California, Florida, and train to get ready for the combine because of the timing of it. And the combine being right there after the Super Bowl, that now it becomes, am I a student? I can't be a student athlete anymore, so you can't take a full workload. So now you're ineligible. So how does the NCAA do it? You took a semester off of school. So now you don't have the credit hours to continue advancing towards your career, so you'd be ineligible. They'd have to be able to change that. The thing that I worry about is, Nick, what ended my NCAA career?
There was an FBI investigation you got caught up in unexpectedly, and you had signed with an agent and taken some money, and it didn't work out.
Right. I had taken money from several agents.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right.
Because that's part of the interview process. It wasn't as if I asked them for money.
Right.
I was just minding my own business. It was forced on me.
Yeah, it was forced on you.
Yeah, part of you signing with us, we'd like to give you this.
Some money.
But
I'm just saying, it's just really a bad concept to think that kids dealing with agents, that it's going to be a clean deal. I believe it just continues to muddy a already murky creek with the NCAA.
A little caveat, too. The agents have to be approved by the NCAA. And as somebody who used to work in that kind of practice in the legal realm, that's interesting to me. That pay attention to that.
How come?
Because they are going to likely, because it's the NCAA, cherry pick and qualify certain agents versus certain other agents. And to me, again, that muddies the water.
Yeah, that certification is not too hard to come by. So you still get people in something that might be a legal field that don't have legal certification.
Correct.
Because you don't have to be a lawyer to be certified.
All of these little inches towards progress are all going to be an inch forward in a 10-mile race as long as you're standing athwart capitalism. There are people that want to pay these kids money either for autographs, shoes, for future earnings, and those market forces will continue to be in play no matter what minor changes you make, and so you're always going to run into.
And if you're out there and you're confused, I'm with you.
It's a little murky. It's a little murky out there. So throughout training camp, Baker Mayfield has reportedly floored the coaches with his performance thus far. Now he'll look to do it in an actual NFL game. The #1 draft pick will reportedly play 2 quarters in Cleveland's preseason opener against the Giants. So Chris Carter, what can we learn about Baker tonight?
I think we can learn a lot. Because I believe that you learn from your successes, but you also learn from your failure. We're going to be able to see where he is, because typically in the preseason they say, well, I'm not going to see anything. You can't hide anything from the rookie quarterbacks because they got to be able to make throws and stuff that they haven't made before. They're running NFL offenses. How much is he going to play under center? Because that was a thing for him. Hadn't done a whole bunch or any of that in college. But I love to see the young quarterbacks when they have failure, when they don't convert third downs, when they make mistakes. Do they continue to make the same mistakes? But are they X's and O's mistakes, or are they just speed of the game mistakes? And then Nick always likes to mention this, man, can they get out of harm's way? Yeah. Because the speed of the game is quicker, and Baker is a good athlete, but that athleticism taken to the NFL, sometimes they're amongst great athletes. So how does that transfer over, and how does he communicate with his teammates? Because, man, he was a leader. Nick calls him the Pied Piper. Does he still have that type of pull on grown men? Because sometimes we don't see that leadership transfer over to an NFL huddle.
The biggest thing I'm going to look for is before the play even starts, how many delay games the Browns going to have today when Baker's under center? How many timeouts they going to blow? The hope would be 0 on both. Are they breaking the huddle with 14 on the play clock or with 9 on the play clock? Like that communication, that getting the play out, making sure everyone's on the same page, like those are the types of things that I think can be the biggest struggle for these guys.
And this is the first year that Hugh Jackson, the head coach, is not calling the plays. He's turned that over to Todd Haley. So that is something, because we saw in Hard Knocks some of the things as far as practice Todd Haley didn't agree with Hugh on. So we'll be able to see in this first game how they orchestrate calling of the plays and getting in and out of that huddle.
So that's before the snap, and then the thing I'm going to be looking for after the snap, and you alluded to it, is I want to see how often Baker cut and runs. Meaning, like, how often does, before he has to abandon the pocket, he says, screw it, I'm out. Like, because that is another issue that athletic quarterbacks have when at Oklahoma, listen, he was a prolific passer. His second to last year at Oklahoma, he set the all-time passer rating record. And then his final year at Oklahoma, he broke his own record. But he also had the escapability. And that is an asset to have in the NFL, assuming he doesn't get hit like you were talking about. But what we've seen too often from young quarterbacks early is they abandon the pocket before they have to. They are not patient in the pocket. They say, oh, someone's coming, I'm going to try to go out along the right side. Those are the things I'm looking for more than accuracy, more than how good the deep ball looks, because I trust his arm. I trust that that will be there. It's those types of things that I think will be instructive about how far along his progression he really is.
And as you both mentioned yesterday, he's only had like a mock rush, you know, essentially. These have not been real rushes, so we'll see that a little bit better in the preseason game tonight. How do you expect him to kind of respond to that? To your point.
When's the last time he got hit? When's the last time Baker took a good hit?
Bowl game.
Yeah.
You know, when he's in the semifinals in the NCAA. But that part right there, though, he's been playing football since he was 8 years old. Right. So that part right there, he will adapt to. But the thing about getting hit, having some failure, those types of things. I want to see him throw the ball down the field. I want to see I know that take the percentages, throw it down. I want to see him throw the ball deep down the field, because when I've seen Baker Mayfield at his best, it was when he was attacking the defense deep down the field.
I also want people to remember, and because I like for people to be patient with all the young quarterbacks, remember how shocking it is in the long scope that Baker was the #1 pick of the draft. 1 year ago, he was a Heisman Trophy finalist. Right. Coming back to Oklahoma, he was not even considered a first-round pick.
No.
The day the season ended, it was Sam Darnold was going to go #1. Then it was, hold up, could Josh Rosen go #1? Then Josh Allen became the guy to go #1. He was, even after he played his final college game, considered by most people to be the 4th quarterback that was going to go in the first round. And he ended up being the #1 overall pick. So if there are some parts of him that look very raw or look not pro-ready, recognize this ascent, it's not just walk on at Tech, walk on at OU, Heisman Trophy winner. It's even 6 months ago. The idea of Baker Mayfield being the #1 pick of the draft sounded crazy to people. And now we've just taken it as a given because that's what happened.
Yeah, but it's now is the time to start getting paid some dividends from the last 2 years in the draft. We talk about Baker Mayfield, but also I want to see last year's #1 pick, Myles Garrett, the defensive end. Man, he looks good. I'm expecting him to have a breakout year. So one on the offensive side, Baker's going to play 2 quarters. But on that other side, we need to start seeing superstar productivity from the other first pick.
Or the guy, I'm sorry to interrupt, or the guy that they got 4th overall because last year they traded away their #1 pick to Houston in Denzel Ward. Like, there's a lot of assets that...
And they named him an immediate starter. You know, so he's doing well. Very, very quiet guy. He's handling his business at the corner position.
I just want to say for the record, guys, I knew Baker was going to go #1.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because after I saw him whipping Nene, that kind of level of swag, that's a #1 draft pick right there. I just want to say that. Coming up, are the Cowboys relying a little too much on Zeke Elliott? That's next.
Nick, you know when I thought he was going to be the #1 pick? When he ran for the police like this.
Welcome back to First Things First. We are joined now by Super Bowl champ Cris Canty.
Hey, now.
Thanks for joining.
What up, good morning.
Good morning.
What's going on?
Good morning.
Almost ran into him running from the.
That was hilarious.
That was good.
I gotta tell you.
I was worried
That's
your mic
funny.
cord was going to get caught on your chair. You're going to go down like Baker did. but
Yeah, I had kind of grabbed
You
that.
kept it
before.
going. You're ready to go.
Stayed on his feet.
Still an athlete, CC, right? Still an athlete.
So
Yeah,
we
still
are
can get away
going
from
to
the rope.
talk about one of Cris Canty's former teams, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, we've spoken a lot about their lack of receiving threats, but Pro Football Focus ranks the Cowboys' running back group as the 4th best in the NFL, of course, led by Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke will be ready for a full season in the Dallas backfield after a very stressful 2017 season, of course, where he missed 6 games. Cris Canty, how much of the Cowboys' success will be pretty much literally on the back of Zeke Elliott?
Well, Zeke is the engine for this Dallas Cowboys team, not just the offense, for the team. The one thing I will say about what the Dallas Cowboys have done over the last couple of years is they've formed an identity for what they want to do in terms of how they want to play the game, their formula for success. And it's going to be with controlling time and possession, using the best offensive line in football, and a dynamic running back who can dictate to the defense front-end coverages. And that's exactly what Ezekiel Elliott is. The proof is in what we saw last year with the 6-game suspension. When you saw the Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott, they were averaging 24 points a game. Without him, 18 points a game. So that's a huge difference. You recognize how he impacts that defense and keeping those guys off of the field, how they actually dictate the terms in which the game is going to be played. Ezekiel Elliott is going to be huge for the Dallas Cowboys. They got to make sure that they have him on the field the entire season because you recognize how he helps Dak Prescott, how he helps the other side of the ball.
As the Cowboys are presently constituted, we have a template to look to as far as the running back success and the team success, and that is Adrian Peterson's tenure with the Vikings. When Adrian Peterson was with the Vikings, they made the playoffs 4 times. 3 of those years were the 3 years Adrian Peterson won the rushing title. The 1 year they made the playoffs without him winning the rushing title, he had 1,400 yards and had the touchdown title. That was the only time those Vikings teams made the postseason. Their running back wasn't a star running back. He was a superstar, best running back in the league running back. And right now, until the Cowboys change something on their skill position guys or add a few more hyper-impactful defensive players, that's the template. How are you going to make the playoffs? Well, guess what? Year 1, Zeke, rushing title, 13-3. Year 2, Zeke, suspended. You know what I mean? It wasn't the same thing. They're 9-7. I hate to make it that simple, but how do you make the playoffs? Zeke, 1,600 yards, 15-plus touchdowns. You should be fine. 1,200 yards? That's a Pro Bowl season. That won't be enough, in my eyes, for this offense.
Well, I think Zeke, this will be his best season. And the reason why, because coming out of Ohio State, when you're in that first season, you know, after going to NCAA, man, you play late, then you get ready for the combine, and then you're trying to visit all these teams, you're traveling around, and then he had that whirlwind first season, where during that first season, he didn't lift a lot of weights during the season. And talking to his dad, the wear and tear of the season, that's where he rushed Nick with, I think, one of the most impressive stats I've seen in football for 1,000 yards on first down. And that was not being able to work out and, being able to lift and maintain your strength during the season. Season number 2, the turmoil off the field, where his mind, it was not in the best place for him. So this offseason, he's added some more girth. He's been able to get in the weight room. He's as strong as he has been, as they say, bigger, stronger, faster. So I look for him to be more productive. So how can we help him? Tavon Austin, because we know what he can do, run the ball between the tackles. But by utilizing Tavon Austin, not as a wide receiver, but as a speed guy out of the backfield, as a fake reverse, as an RPO guy, I believe that can help Zeke and help loosen up that pocket that's going to be 8 guys in the box, 7 guys in the box. So if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I'm going to try to utilize Tavon Austin because I don't want the Adrian Peterson. I don't want them same results. You know why? Because they didn't win in a big way. I believe Dallas's defense is going to surprise some people. But if I make Zeke better, I make him a better receiver out of the backfield, and I allow Tavon Austin a little misdirection to be able to help Zeke continue to pound that rock.
Absolutely, CC. And I know you talked about that wide receiver group. While they might not be as accomplished as the Dez Bryant and the Jason Wittens, the guys that you lost this offseason, they're more athletic. They're going to present more of a speed element. So that should help create some room in the box for Ezekiel Elliott. But what the Cowboys also did, they went out and drafted Connor Williams, the tackle tackle from Texas in the second round. He's going to slide in and play that left guard position. So, again, continuing to make their strength even stronger, fortify that area of the team. They signed Zach Martin to the contract extension. So they're making sure that they protect how they're going to be able to win games, which is that offensive line. Because it's an average team if you don't have Ezekiel Elliott on the field. You saw it during the 6-game suspension. They were 3-3. Right. The 2 playoff teams they played against, they got beat to sleep. They outscored 64-16. So the reality is, if you don't have Ezekiel Elliott on that team, on that field, then you're just an average team that's probably not going to get to the postseason.
Let me reframe it. So earlier in the show, we talked about how it's not enough in the NBA or the NFL anymore for basically there just to be one guy, right? Everybody needs some help. Is Zeke enough? You know, I want to ask that question. I know you kind of said, according to some stats, he might not be enough.
Well, I mean, I think if he is, your point's well taken, that even the year the Peterson rushed for 2,000 yards, the Vikings knocked out in the playoffs in short order. He's certainly not enough to make the Cowboys a Super Bowl favorite, to make they need well more than that. Do I think having a guy that can give you 100 yards every game, rushing the football, average a touchdown a game is enough to be a 10-win team, assuming the rest of your team isn't in shambles? I do think he's enough for that. And I do think he is. The reason they were a 13-win team his rookie year instead of a 10-win team was it was his production along with. Dak never turned the ball over. You know what I mean? Like, they were never giving away.
Like, you can win that way, but your margin of error is real slim. And now, can we depend on, because typically when you have that dominant running game, you play very, very conservative as far as your quarterback. You don't take a lot of chances. The part that I think that we're missing is how good is Dallas defense is going to be. And they've had a lot of good, positive things coming out of camp. I'm believing that they're going to be a top 10 defense and be able to create more time of possession. You mentioned Connor Williams at that left guard. Let's continue to pile drive them. Let's continue to, let's run the ball up. You can win in the NFL. They can win 10 games by running the football, but by trying to be too fancy, drop that quarterback back 30 times a game. We'll do a stat. When they throw it 30 times, how many times will the Cowboys win? I don't believe it'll be a lot.
Just on a real quick note, CC, when you start talking about how the game is played, if the Dallas Cowboys can maintain possession of the ball and get the lead, that's going to force the game to tilt. That doesn't give the opposing offense a lot of options. They're going to have to throw the ball to catch up. And if you make the opposing offense one-dimensional, that Dallas Cowboys defense is going to be a lot better with Randy Gregory and Tyrone Crawford and DeMarcus Lawrence getting after the quarterback. So hopefully, with Zeke on the field, they'll be able to do that, change the complexion of the game, make it a little bit easier for that defense.
And when CC says they can be a top 10 defense, I mean, last year, they were the 8th overall defense in football. Like, the year before, they were the 5th scoring defense in football. That last year, they had trouble on third downs, which is a terrible time to have trouble. But aside from that, 8th against the run, 11th against the pass. One final question. I'm going to throw a name out there and tell me if you think he's going to make any impact. Talking about the running game. Bo Scarborough. He's a name because he's Alabama, but he's a 7th-round pick. He's also has got to be physically one of the biggest running backs in the league. Do you think he has any real role in the Cowboys winning games this year?
You can't have enough horses when you're trying to run. He does have a running style. Alabama, it is downhill. Now, he is a big, tall running back. So does he have the type of body lean that's successful in the NFL? Because right now he runs too upright. Now, he does have potential. He's got one shoddy knee after playing at Alabama. Everyone coming from Alabama got a body part that's hurt. But he is a good name and a person to watch because he could complement Zeke in that power running game because, man, he can run the football. He can run the football now. All right. Bo Scarborough,
Cris
Tuscaloosa High School.
You gonna stay with us here? Coming up, is Andrew Luck gonna return to his elite form? We'll talk about it next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First with Cris Canty. Now, how about this for a sentence that has not been said since the 2016 football season? Andrew Luck will play in an NFL game today. The Colts kick off their preseason in Seattle with number 12 under center. Now, Luck, who recently said that he was worried he'd never enjoy playing football again, will play the first quarter for Indy. Cris Canty, what should the Colts hope to see from Andrew Luck tonight?
Well, I think they just want to see him knock some of the rust off. He hadn't played football in over a year and a half, so there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment just because of the speed of it. You know, when you start talking about practice speed, that's different from game speed. Even though it's the preseason, there's a little uptick in tempo, and so just have Andrew Luck adjust to that, being able to knock some of the rust off, making sure from a psychology standpoint that he takes those couple of hits and he's able to work past that. Because as a player coming back from a major injury, it's always a situation where you want to get some confidence, and the only way that you can trust that you're all the way back is by making sure you take a hit on that injury and then you bounce back up and you can continue to go out there and do your job. I think from an X's and O's standpoint, you're probably going to look for him just to operate the offense, just get used to the pre-snap reads, getting in and out of the huddle, making the calls at the line of scrimmage. But I think the biggest thing is just to let Andrew Luck get a feel for playing NFL football again.
He's also got a new coach, new offensive coordinator, so it's their first time, all of them collectively playing together. So you mentioned the rust. How would we be able to tell as fans if he's rusty? Well, his overall accuracy. Watch his ball placement. What you'd like to be able to do in a situation like this, the offensive coordinator, you know, you'd like to be able to generate some first downs. Try to get a little sequence, a little rhythm, because the more rhythm you get, the more you get out of Andrew Luck in the intangibles. Him coming in and out of the huddle, because it's important as a player on that offense that you hear that voice. As that guy, that we know we got that guy. And Andrew Luck is that guy. I coached him. I was the Pro Bowl. I was the honorary captain for the Pro Bowl. Andrew Luck was one of the first selections. And I knew with having Harbaugh as my coach, having Luck as my quarterback, I didn't have a whole bunch of stuff I had to worry about with guys, man. He is on top of guys. People think that he's an all-shucks. No, he is a great leader. He's vocal. And if I see that same type of guy, you don't get that if you don't get the first down. So those are some of the things that I want to see him verbalizing, taking back command of that huddle, taking back command of that organization. And you can only do that if you're able to generate some first downs.
And what can be so frustrating for fans and even more so for coaches in these preseason games is if they're like, with Luck, he's going to play more than most. But if the theory is, I want to see my first team unit out there for 12 plays, if that means they got to be out there for 3 drives because it's 3 and out, it's a first down and then a punt. And a lot of times that's because you run the ball on first down, you lose a yard, now you're in 2nd and 11, and it leads to a quick drive. And that's going to be the question for the Colts tonight, absent Andrew Luck, and the Colts all year long, absent Andrew Luck. Do they have any threat of a running game? Like, does Marlon Mack do anything for you? Is Pro Football Focus right when they say they have the dead last rushing attack in all of the NFL? Like, that is something that Luck can't control. Now, what Luck can control is how smart he plays. Now, he's obviously a very smart football player, but at times he would make dumb decisions. And I'm not talking about interceptions. I'm talking
You're
about
not talking about misreading coverage.
I'm not talking about misreading coverages.
Okay.
And I'm not even talking about trying to fit a ball into a window he shouldn't, because I don't mind the Peyton Manning, Brett Favre to the extreme style of we will take there's going to be some picks because there's going to be a high reward along the high risk. I'm talking about throw it away. Should I throw it away? Should I throw it away? Bam, I got hit. That's what I'm talking about, where Luck ran himself into some trouble over basically the entirety of his career.
Well, I think the issue with that is he recognized that he didn't have the best supporting cast out there, so he was trying to do a little too much. But you would think that coming off this injury and just having a chance to digest what happened to him, process that, you realize how valuable he is to this franchise and that they're not going to be competitive without him on the field. So the best ability that he has is availability. So that's the biggest thing for Andrew Luck, making sure that he understands that. Now, I think the front office and ownership understands that, because you look at what they've done in the draft the last couple of years, being able to get the center out of Alabama, Ryan Kelly, and then getting Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith in this year's draft. I think those guys are going to be key. Again, the guard center guard combination, that's the fabric of the pocket. That's also the heart of the run game. So if you want to have balance for Andrew Luck, you want to have protection for Andrew Luck, that group is going to have to play well.
Following up, Cris Canty, on your point of availability. Let's say he stays healthy. That helps him out in that way. How good can the Colts be with him?
Well, they're in a tough division. You look at the AFC South, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have an all-world defense. I don't trust their quarterback, but, I mean, it is what it is. They were in the AFC Championship game last year. The Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson coming back, a really good defense, a sneaky good defense if everybody's healthy. And then you look at what the Tennessee Titans did, a playoff team from a year ago. They got a new head coach, some moving parts. But it's going to be a competitive division. So I don't know that the Indianapolis Colts are going to be in a situation where they're competing for the postseason, but I I think that this is going to be a year where they're going to be more competitive, certainly more competitive than what we've seen in the last couple of years.
Any team could win the AFC South, but the Colts are the one team that it would shock me. Like the Colts are the team that would surprise me the absolute most, because you look
they have the least talent.
They have the least talent. You look at the Titans. The Titans, as you mentioned, were a playoff team and felt they underachieved enough they fired their coach.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The Texans have, we were talking before the show about candidates for comeback player of the year. Texans got 4 of them on their own team. They also added a key contributor from Jacksonville in Colvin, the nickel corner, brought him over. And then there's the Jags, who you think after their giant win improvement, a 7-game improvement from 16 to 17, that they want to continue on that improvement. So the Colts, to me, Luck's success this year, he's one of the rare quarterbacks. It will not be about the team winning losses. It'll be about, does he look like Andrew Luck again?
Does he look like Andrew Luck, and can they change the lack of physicality as far as this organization? They played this way for a long, long time. And you mentioned Peyton Manning, they only got 1 Super Bowl win out of that. You have to be able to change your identity with Luck. You got to be able to protect him. He can't be the most pressured quarterback inside the pocket, and he can't go over the next 70 games and only have 300-yard rushers, which he had in the previous 70 starts. Like, that is a crime in itself. So let's get this franchise back on the right track.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.